This is the Tree of Life, Season 21, Chapter 3. In this episode, we will be discussing how the movement of objects into our awareness is a reflection of pivoting permitted by elimination of two forms of phase linking. In this season, we have talked about how in the absence of integration of an impulse during reverse substitution by the incoming consciousness, that is, in a subsequent substitution event, that incoming consciousness becomes an object within the awareness of one of the two streams. Since we see that integration is produced by emotional coupling within a structure, the phase linking of that impulse between the self-representation and some other, it is true that non-integration occurs due to preferential expectation matching and dialectical orientations to that impulse. Let's unpack this a bit. Preferential expectation matching assumes that some central person within a common structure has created a situation where the expectations of one actor, the incoming consciousness, are matched, resulting in affirmation of one impulse, whilst the outgoing consciousness same impulse is negated, that is, the expectations are not matched for that impulse, resulting in a dialectical orientation of those two impulses. That is, in the absence of coupling, structures generate hierarchies automatically with respect to affirmation of particular impulses. Now, it is also apparent from our first point that the incoming consciousness becoming an object, that is, there being some limited spatial distance between the subject and that other, is a product of this formation into a hierarchy. Since we saw that there are two forms of phase linking, that represented within a structure as emotional coupling, and that between the analog and digital stream, represented by covariance, we can see that the bifurcation of awareness occurs due to the breakdown in covariance, whilst the proximity of that other within the substitution event occurs due to the breakdown in emotional coupling. That is, awareness of the other is a product of elimination of phase linking between the two streams, but the proximity of that other is a product of dialectical orientation to the same impulse. Now, once the incoming consciousness becomes an object within one of the streams, along with the elimination of phase linking horizontally within a structure and vertically between the streams, it is possible to pivot around that other consciousness from hierarchy to hierarchy. Hierarchies thus form automatically in the absence of emotional coupling around that other, but become exchangeable when there is room to pivot around that object. Since we saw that in reverse substitution, tautological natural law is usually affirmational, whereas hierarchical natural law can be both affirmational and negational, distance between the subject and that other permits negational impulses to form around that other as object. From all of this we see that the movement of the other into our awareness when a substitution event follows reverse substitution reflects the failure to integrate that other into tautology, and the simultaneous integration of that other into a particular hierarchy. Objects enter our awareness due to a breakdown in phase linking horizontally and vertically, producing the possibility of movement oriented around that object, pivoting to a distinct hierarchy. This movement generates the potentiality for negation or affirmation of impulses in relation to that object. The bifurcation of awareness shows us that distinct objects can exist in the two streams, analog and digital, which means a simultaneous arrangement of distinct sets of hierarchies. Thus, a subject doesn't fall into one set of hierarchies created by orientation around a single set of objects, but rather many fall under multiple simultaneous hierarchies. That's the end of the podcast for today.